That was Chris Bernstein. Okay, next up is Michel Lindholm. Is that right?
This is a story about weather, whether or not we have weather. This is a story about weather, whether or not we have weather, and whether or not we should follow that weather when and if we discover that it is weather. First we discover, yes, it is weather. Then we decide to follow that weather on and on for as long as it goes. Well, that matter discovered and decided, we put it aside and move on to other matters. This is a story about bullfights. Bullfights that occur in every city of every country all around the world. First we attend watching the bulls buck and hoof and snort and bellow and scratch the ground with their gray hoofs pawing the floor. Then we attend with our arms filled with holding the capes and swords. Then we attend to the end with our bucket of salves, ointments for sores, our wet rags pouring out libations for the poor toreador. Then we attend to the sweeping of the arena, and then we are there again the following day, attending, watching, waiting for the bull's blood on the gray arena floor. This is a story about time and the time it takes to go from one moment into another, from one joy to one sorrow, from one look and one way into another, about the time it takes to roll over and play dead. This is a story about lucky pennies, the kind you find when you are looking up at the sky, watching the clouds pass by overhead, and something makes you look down at your feet, whereby you spy a lucky penny. You bend down, pick it up, and say, "Oh yes, this is my lucky day," and you pocket it and return to your looking up. Meanwhile, the clouds have moved inches in a northwesterly direction. This is a story about looking up, bright hope for the future and future ties. This is also a story about fine weather, whether you're looking up or down. This is a story about fine weather, about when looking up on a not-so-fine day, a raindrop lands in your eye and you are smiling. This is a story about smiling, smiling because the weather is so fine, whether or not it is. Smiling because the entire bank of white clouds in the night sky have been pushed aside by the wind. Smiling because the jewelry at Fortunoff's is on sale or free and you feel you are a rich woman in spite of having given away all your money. Smiling because the old people down the block are smiling. Smiling because the old dog who barks backwards is smiling. Smiling because the time is right for smiling. Smiling because when you smile, all the balls and pins fall into place, pocketed in your open fists. This is a story about legalities and financing, a story about legal financing, about legalizing bullfights in the 50 states and about the fellows who finance such things. This is also a story about finding the time to juggle your finances when the whole world is watching the stock market go broke and you are lucky not to be in it. This is a story about poverty and illness, the kind where you are sure they must have mistaken you for someone else because you are rich and in the most excellent of healths that you have ever been in. This is a story about wealth. Spread your wealth, shed it, spread it, smear it like glue on the paper of your life. Take it to the dry cleaners and deposit it there. Wealth is washable in any weather and so deserves mention. Whether or not you are wealthy, it is wise to distribute your wealth before you are denounced for being a capitalist. This is also a story then about capital or collateral. Both are distributable. This is a story about teeth, teeth that clamp and bite and also unhitch to receive when the time is right. This is a story about receiving. Don't pull up your antennas, pull down the shades in your open windows, receive the weather that way. This is a story about the kind of receiving you learn in infancy before you are weaned. This is a story about building a house, tying a shoe, guessing the time, delivering letters, answering letters, pulling up socks, multiplying figures, subtracting answers without using a calculator. This is a story about taking stock of your collateral. This is a story about city blocks and the 1 minute it takes to walk each one. This is a story about tick-tock clocks and how to avoid them, about minds and how to deal with them, about constellations and how to map them. This is a story about muscles and how to tenderize them. This is a story about Reeboks and how to wear them. This is a story about elms and how to hear them, and hemlocks and how to greet them. This is a story about moving vehicles and how to confront them. This is a story about work and how to bypass it. This is a story about daily life and how to live it. This is a story about brass tacks, about equal opportunity for all. This is a story about decisions and decision-making, briefs and joint decisions, about board meetings and when and how to attend them. This is a story about the real world and yet how to avoid it and yet appear to be present at the briefings. This is a story about hunting and fishing and which places are best for these things. This is a story about how to behave in a tidal wave, how to bow when brought before the cafeteria cook, how to curtsy when brought before the Emperor of Japan, how to greet the King of Siam, how to eat in the presence of bees, how to picnic on a fine day without inviting the ants, how to play catch without running too far.